Two words. I'm fine. Maybe you said it today, maybe 10 minutes ago. Maybe to your mother, maybe to your father, maybe to your brother, maybe to your friend, maybe to your boyfriend, maybe to your girlfriend. It doesn't matter because it's a lie. But why though? In 2022, there was a survey that was conducted which suggested that 1 out of 2 Indians are undergoing some kind of significant emotional distress. Could be anxiety, could be burnout, could be chronic sadness. We're a country of over 1 billion people quietly falling apart and telling each other we are fine. And the worst part isn't even that we lie. The worst part is that we've been trained so thoroughly, so completely, and from such a young age that most of us don't even recognize it as a lie anymore. We just wake up exhausted, we just go through the commotions, and when someone asks us how we are, the answer comes before the feeling does. I'm fine. So today we're going to talk about why for millions of Indians, especially women, those two words are the heaviest thing they carry every single day. Think back to the last time you cried in front of someone in your family. No, really, think about it. Not a tear at funerals where everyone was crying anyways, not an emotional moment during a film where the theater gave you cover, a real moment where you were genuinely falling apart and someone in your home saw it. Now think about what happened next. Chances are, it wasn't met with open arms and genuine curiosity about what you are feeling. Chances are that there was discomfort, a subject change, something like, don't cry, everything will be okay. Anything that was less about comforting you and more about making the crying stop as quickly as possible. Because in a lot of Indian households, emotions, real, inconvenient, messy emotions, make everybody uncomfortable. That's where it all starts. Not with cruelty, never with cruelty, with love, actually. A love that was shaped by survival. Think about the generation that raised us. Think about what they carried. Think about parents who worked exhausting hours, who navigated genuine hardship and personal sacrifice that most of us will never truly understand. They didn't have the luxury of processing emotions. They didn't have the language for it, the time for it, the safety for it. So they did what their parents did. They pushed through. They stayed strong. They handled it. And then they taught us the same thing. Not because they wanted to damage us, but because in their experience, strength, the ability to suppress, endure, and keep moving was the thing that kept families alive. So they raised us to be strong the only way they knew how. By teaching us that falling apart was not an option. For girls especially, this conditioning started earlier and ran deeper. The message wasn't always spoken directly, it lived in the smaller things. In watching your mother swallow her frustration at the dinner table and smile anyways. In being told you were so mature and so responsible. Compliments that were really instructions, to be honest. In being praised for being easy, being quiet, being no trouble to anyone. These phrases, think about what it asks of a child. It asks them to monitor their own needs constantly and edit out anything that might inconvenience the people around them. It asks them to make themselves smaller, quieter, less, and it rewards them for doing so, which is the most effective kind of conditioning there is. By the time the child becomes an adult, the editing is automatic, unconscious. This is what the being strong trap actually is. It isn't strength. Strength is feeling something fully and choosing how to respond to it. What we were taught is not strength, but suppression. Feeling something and immediately burying it before anyone notices. Real strength has never required you to pretend you're okay even when you're not. But somewhere between survival mode and love, and the best intentions of people who were themselves never taught any better, we built a culture that decided it did. And now we're all walking around exhausted from the performance. Every Indian family has a room nobody enters. Not a physical room, but a conversational one. A topic, a person, a wound. Maybe it's the father whose drinking habit has spiraled. Maybe it's the marriage that is clearly unhappy but continues because the alternative is unthinkable. Maybe it's the child who came back from college changed in ways nobody has asked about. Maybe it's the grandmother who has been sad for 20 years and everybody just calls her moody. You know the room. Every Indian family has one. And the most remarkable thing isn't that the room exists, but it's how skillfully, how gracefully, and how completely everyone pretends it doesn't. It doesn't matter whether you grew up in a joint family in a small town or a nuclear family in a metro. It doesn't matter whether your family is conservative or progressive, religious or not, wealthy or struggling. The architecture of avoidance looks remarkably similar across all of them. Dinners get made, festivals get celebrated, relatives visit, photos get taken, WhatsApp groups stay active with good morning messages and forwarded prayers. And the most obvious unspoken thing, the real thing, that sits in the center of it all, like furniture everybody has silently agreed to walk around, it continues to exist, unwavering in its presence. Despite that, the family is together, the family is functioning, the family is fine. Why did emotional avoidance become the default language of the Indian household across every region, every community, and every class? Part of it goes back to what we talked about earlier, the survival inheritance. Generations of families operating under genuine stress don't have the bandwidth for emotional processing. You deal with what's in front of you. You keep moving. You don't open a wound. You don't have the time or tools to heal. But there's something else operating here too, something more specifically cultural. In India, the family unit isn't just a personal structure, it's a social one. The family's reputation, its dignity, its standing in the community, these are living things that require constant maintenance. And nothing threatens that maintenance faster than visible dysfunction. A child who is struggling becomes a family that has failed. A marriage that is unhappy becomes a family with problems. A parent who's falling apart becomes a family that cannot hold itself together. So the struggling gets hidden. The unhappiness gets performed anyways. The falling apart happens quietly, privately, behind a door that stays firmly closed to the outside world. And eventually it closes to the inside world too. The cost of this kind of silence is something Indian families are only beginning to reckon with. Because here's what actually happens to the things we don't talk about. They don't disappear. They don't resolve themselves quietly in the background while life continues on the surface. They grow. They mutate. They find other ways out. In sudden explosions of anger that seems disproportionate to the moment. In physical symptoms that doctors can't fully diagnose. In a pervasive anxiety that everyone feels but nobody can name the source of. The child who watched their parents never resolve conflict doesn't learn that conflict is resolvable. They learn that it is something to be survived and then buried. They carry that lesson into their own relationships. They build their own room that nobody enters, and then the silence passes forward. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes from this. It's not the loneliness of being physically alone. It's the loneliness of being surrounded by people who love you, like genuinely, deeply love you, and still feel completely unseen. That loneliness is something millions of Indians carry quietly. And then someone asks how they're doing. Guess what happens next? There's a woman you know. Maybe she's your mother. Maybe she's your sister, your friend, your colleague, your girlfriend, your wife. Maybe when you look closely enough, she's you. She wakes up before everyone else. She manages the logistics of an entire household while also maintaining down a career. She remembers everyone's appointments, everyone's preferences, everyone's moods. She notices when something is wrong with everyone around her and quietly adjusts, making space, smoothing things over, absorbing tension before it becomes conflict. And when someone asks how she is, she also says she's fine. Not because she is, but because her needs have been so consistently deprioritized by the culture, by the family, by the roles assigned to her since childhood, that she has stopped expecting anyone to genuinely care about her. They just think this is what life looks like and feels like. That if they were stronger, more organized, more spiritually evolved, they would be managing better. They don't realize that no amount of personal strength was ever going to be enough, especially in a situation where the weight was never fairly distributed in the first place. This conditioning starts young, younger than most people realize. A girl child in most Indian households across every region, every community, every class receives a very specific and very consistent set of instructions. Not always in words, more often in observation, in what she watches other women around her do. She watches her mother serve everyone else before sitting down herself. She watches her grandmother apologize for taking up space. She watches the women in her family be praised for their patience, being available, being capable, being strong, never being the one who needs something. And as she grows older, the instructions get even more specific. Don't be emotional or people will think you're unstable. Don't complain too much because nobody wants to hear it. Don't fall apart because you have responsibilities. Don't ask for too much and be grateful for what you have. Don't make your pain someone else's problem. Every single one of these instructions has the same function. They teach her to edit herself. By the time she is an adult, the editing is so automatic she doesn't experience it as suppression. She experiences it as just being herself, a person who is fine, a person who manages, and a person who doesn't make a fuss. And here is where it gets particularly painful. When Indian women do express pain, when they push past the conditioning and the editing and actually saying out loud that they are not okay, what they frequently encounter is not relief, not support, not the genuine curiosity their pain deserves. They encounter minimization. You're overthinking. Everyone goes through this. Why are you making it such a big deal? Think about what others have to deal with. You have a good life. What do you even have to be sad about? Now, these responses aren't always malicious. Sometimes they come from people who genuinely love the women they're saying them to. But the effect is the same regardless of intention. They teach her that her pain is disproportionate and illegitimate, and imposition. I'm fine, she says. Why? Because she's tired. This tiredness has a name in psychology. It's called emotional labor. In India, where the expectation is amplified by deeply ingrained ideas about womanhood, duty, and sacrifice, the disproportion is even staggering. Picture a wedding. Not a specific one, just the idea of one. The lights, the music, the food, the color, the noise, and the chaos that somehow organizes itself into something beautiful. Hundreds of people dressed in their finest, laughing, dancing, embracing people they haven't seen in years. Now freeze that image and ask yourself honestly, how many people in that frame are exhausted? How many are grieving something privately? How many had a fight on the way there that they've temporarily suspended? How many are carrying a worry, a fear, a sadness that got dressed up and showed up anyway because the invitation didn't come with an option to opt out? How many people in that wedding photo are performing? Almost all of them, including the bride and the groom. And the remarkable thing is, the performance is so good, so collectively maintained, so culturally rehearsed, that by the end of the night, some of them have almost convinced themselves that it was real. No culture on earth performs happiness at that scale as us. This isn't a criticism, it's almost an art form. The ability to create collective joy, to build rituals of celebrations that pull entire communities together, to mark life's moments with color and music, with food and togetherness. But beauty and burden can exist in the same space. And somewhere along the way, an extraordinary capacity for collective celebration quietly became something else. It became a mandate, an expectation, a performance review that happens at every family gathering. Are you smiling enough? Are you present enough? Are you grateful enough? Are you happy enough? And this is where the men enter the frame. Because while women are expected to perform warmth, availability, and emotional togetherness at these gatherings, men are performing something different, but equally exhausting. They are performing fineness of a different kind. A man at the family gathering who is financially struggling doesn't say so. The man whose marriage is falling apart laughs the loudest at the dinner table. The man who is drowning in anxiety stands with his chest out and talks confidently about his plans. The man who hasn't slept properly in months makes the same jokes he always makes. Because the Indian man was handed a different but equally suffocating script. Be the provider. Be the rock. Have the answers. Show no weakness. Vulnerability for men in Indian culture isn't just discouraged. It's treated as a fundamental failure of identity. A man who admits he's not okay isn't just struggling. He is in fact failing at being a man. So he wears the mask too. Competence instead of warmth, humor instead of openness, and confidence instead of honesty. But this is a mask nonetheless. Together, the women performing emotional availability and the men performing unshakable strength, they fill these gatherings with a happiness that is real in some moments and completely manufactured in others.
and nobody can tell the difference anymore, including themselves. This is what festivity masks does over time. It rewires your relationship with your own emotional experience, and when the occasion calls for joy, you produce it. And then you go home, and you sit in the quiet. And the quiet feels strange, heavy, sometimes hard to explain. There's this specific moment that many people recognize. You've just come back from something, a family dinner, a festival, a celebration. By every external measure, it was a good time. People you love, food you enjoy, laughter that was sometimes genuine. And yet, sitting in the car, on your way home, or lying in the bed afterward, there's this hollow feeling, this odd deflation. And now, there's less of you than there was before. That feeling has a name: emotional depletion. And the cruelest part? The people around you at these gatherings, the ones whose happiness looks so effortless, so genuine, so complete, they went home and did the exact same thing as well. Everyone is performing for everyone else. Everyone is exhausting themselves, maintaining an image of okayness for a room full of people doing exactly the same thing. We're almost 1.5 billion people dressed up, showing up, and performing for each other. There's a concept in engineering called metal fatigue. It's what happens when a material is subjected to repeated stress over a long period of time. Nothing dramatic enough to break it immediately, just consistent pressure applied repeatedly over years. From the outside, the metal looks completely fine. No visible cracks, no obvious damage. It is holding its shape too. It appears by every external measure to be okay. And then one day, it fractures. Not because of anything that happened that particular day, not because of one final unbearable force, but because of the accumulation. Because of every single time before that, it absorbed the pressure and kept going. We have spent decades in India treating emotional suppression as a virtue, as evidence of character, as the mark of someone who has their life together, who isn't a burden, who is strong, who is brave in the ways that matter. Because emotions don't disappear when we push them down. They don't dissolve. They don't quietly resolve themselves while we get on with things. They go somewhere else. They show up in the body as chronic tension, as headaches that never fully go away. They show up in behavior as irritability, as anger that erupts out of nowhere and confuses everyone around you, including you. They show up as numbness, a flat, gray, persistent nothing that people frequently mistake for depression but is actually something slightly different. Research backs this up comprehensively. Studies on emotional suppression consistently show that people who chronically suppress their emotional experiences don't just feel worse psychologically, but they also show measurable physical consequences: higher cortisol levels, elevated blood pressure, compromised immune function. The body keeps score in ways the mind has learned to ignore. A 2023 Lancet study found that India carries one of the highest burdens of depression and anxiety globally. There are nearly 200 million Indians living with significant mental health challenges. And how many of them do you think are currently telling someone they are fine? It shows up in the relationship you couldn't be fully present in because you didn't know how to let someone see the real version of you. The opportunities you didn't take because somewhere underneath, the performance of competence was a terror you never examined and never pushed through. This is the cost of saying I'm fine. And for the women who've been carrying this for the longest and the deepest, the mothers who held everything together while quietly falling apart, the daughters who were mature enough beyond their years because someone had to be, the wives who absorbed tension and made themselves smaller and called it love, the working women who performed competence at the office and warmth at home and collapsed in private. The cycle doesn't break itself, it just continues. And the men, the ones who were handed a script that said that real men don't fall apart. The ones whose first heart attack comes before their first honest confession. Just say, I'm not fine. 3 words. That's where it starts. Not with a therapist, though therapy is valuable and worth pursuing if you actually can access it. Not with a grand confrontation or a dramatic unburdening. Just one honest moment with one person who deserves to know the real answer. Because here's what I've come to believe: the bravest thing an Indian can do in a culture that has spent centuries rewarding endurance and punishing vulnerability is to stop pretending that you're okay. The child who sees their parents say, "I'm not okay today," learns something their parents never learned: that it's survivable, that the house doesn't collapse in and on itself, that love doesn't disappear when you stop being fine.
Hey, now before you leave, can you just drop a like and leave a comment? So that's gonna help my channel grow a bit. It's gonna help with the algorithm and stuff. I'd really appreciate it if you did that.